Raider Nation, let's talk about something that's been quietly brewing under the surface but could have massive implications for the future of this franchise. The looming decision on Colton Miller's contract. Yeah, we're diving deep into the trenches today, literally and figuratively, because when you start looking at what's ahead for the Las Vegas Raiders in 2025 and beyond, one name you can't afford to ignore is Colton Miller. He's been a fixture on that offensive line since the moment he got drafted back in 2018. And now, with the salary cap landscape changing, the team finally finding some stability and a young core starting to form, extending or restructuring. Miller's deal could be the kind of move that sets the tone for everything else. Let's start with the basics. Colton Miller still has 2 years left on his current contract. He signed a 3-year, $54 million extension back in 2021, which at the time made him one of the highest paid left tackles in the league. And honestly, for a guy who was seen as a bit of a reach when he was first drafted, Miller has completely flipped that narrative. He's not a superstar, he's not out there chasing Trent Williams level dominance, but what he is reliable, he's consistent, he's durable. And in a league where offensive line play is at a premium and so many teams are desperate to find even average left tackles, the Raiders have had something solid for years now. That's not something to take for granted. But here's the thing. Miller's cap hit is about to balloon. In 2025, he's scheduled to count over $18 million against the cap. That number jumps to $20 million in 2026. And for a team that's trying to build something sustainable, with a lot of young players either needing extensions or just getting started on their rookie deals, that's a significant chunk of the pie. Especially when you consider that the Raiders are probably going to need to invest more in other areas of the roster, finding a long-term answer at quarterback, possibly re-signing key guys like Nate Hobbs, and continuing to fortify that defense. It all adds up. So the conversation starts here. Do the Raiders try to extend Colton Miller now and get ahead of that cap hit, spreading out his money over more years and potentially freeing up space to make other moves? Or do they wait it out and ride the current deal, knowing they might have to pay even more down the line or risk losing him in free agency? And look, it's not just about the money, it's about leadership. Colton Miller isn't the loudest guy in the locker room, but by all accounts, he's one of the most respected. He shows up, he works, he plays through injuries, and maybe most importantly, he's been through all the chaos. Coaching changes, quarterback switches, front office, turnover, and he stayed steady. That's rare, that's valuable. That's the kind of guy you want around when you're trying to build a culture. And with guys like Joe Alt, Olufashanu, and other top-tier tackles set to enter the league this year, it's not like the Raiders couldn't find a replacement eventually. But here's the catch. You're not just replacing a player, you're replacing everything that comes with him. Chemistry, stability, trust. That takes time. Now, some people will look at the tape and say Miller has slipped a bit. And sure, there were moments last year when his performance wasn't at the level we saw in 2021 or 2022. But context matters. Hey, he dealt with some injuries. The quarterback play was inconsistent at best, chaotic at worst. And you had a coaching staff that was frankly all over the place until Antonio Pierce came in and brought some order to the house. Offensive linemen don't thrive in instability, and Miller was no exception. But you give him a full off season with his current coaching staff, a clear vision on offense, and potentially more help around him, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he bounced back in a big way. And that brings us to the next layer of this whole situation. What's the plan at quarterback? Because if the Raiders do decide to draft a rookie, say someone like Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. in the first round, or even take a shot on someone like Spencer Rattler later on, having a veteran blindside protector already in place makes a huge difference. You don't want a young quarterback stepping into the league and immediately running for his life. That's how confidence gets wrecked. That's how bad habits form. And that's how promising careers start going off the rails before they even begin. Keeping Colton Miller in place gives whoever's under center a fighting chance. It gives them time. And in the NFL, time is everything. Now, some folks might argue that the Raiders should be looking to get younger across the board, and that includes the offensive line. And yeah, in theory, that makes sense. But here's the reality. Finding a franchise caliber left tackle is hard. Like really hard. And when you've already got one who fits your system, knows the locker room, and has proven he can handle the job, the smarter play might just be to double down and keep him around. Extend him, lower the short-term cap hit, and give yourself flexibility to build around the core you've got. The other side of that coin is what happens if you don't. What happens if you let this play out? Let Miller hit free agency in 2026 and suddenly find yourself bidding against half the league for a left tackle who already knows your system. That's not a position you want to be in. That's not how you build a winning team. You build by locking up your cornerstones before it becomes a crisis. You build by planning ahead. Then if the new front office, led by Tom Telesco, is serious about creating long-term success in Vegas, this is the kind of forward-thinking move they need to consider. And let's not forget, this wouldn't just be a move for Miller. It'd be a message to the locker room. It says, if you perform, if you stay consistent, if you buy into what we're building, you'll get rewarded. That kind of culture shift is how you change a franchise. That's how you attract free agents, how you retain young talent, how you create a place where players want to stay. So while this might seem like just a numbers decision on paper, the ripple effects could be massive. Now let's get into the deeper waters of what this potential Colton Miller extension could really mean. Not just for the left tackle spot, but for the entire roster construction over the next 3 years. Because when you lock in a foundational piece like that, it's not only about protecting the quarterback or managing cap numbers, it's about creating a clear path forward. It's about knowing what your identity is on offense. And for the Raiders, an identity has been hard to come by in recent seasons. Under Josh McDaniels, they tried to mimic the New England formula. Short passes, heavy personnel, control the clock. And it just never fit. Now with Antonio Pierce at the helm and a likely shift in philosophy coming under new offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, the emphasis seems to be moving back toward balance, physicality, and tempo. In that kind of scheme, the left tackle isn't just a blocker. He's the anchor of your rhythm. He dictates the edge. He sets the tone for your protection calls. He allows your play-action game to develop. Lose that guy, and suddenly you're reshuffling everything from your protections to your playbook. But here's where it gets tricky. Because while Colton Miller is an above-average player at a premium position, the league is also in an arms race when it comes to athleticism as tackle. You look around at some of the newer names in the league. Penei Sewell in Detroit, Christian Darrisaw in Minnesota, Tristan Wirfs in Tampa, and you're seeing guys who can erase elite pass rushers and also get to the second level with ease in the run game. Miller isn't quite that kind of athlete. He's more of a technician. He wins with footwork and leverage. So the question becomes, does he fit what the Raiders want their offensive line to look like in 2025 and beyond? That brings us to the draft. The Raiders are sitting in a fascinating spot. Depending on how things fall, they could be within range to grab one of the top tackles in the class. Maybe someone slips, maybe they trade down, maybe they grab a developmental guy in round 2 or 3. Names like Taliese Fuaga, Kingsley Suamataia, or Patrick Paul have all come up in scouting circles. And there's always the chance that the Raiders look to shift Miller to the right side if they fall in love with a left tackle prospect. But let's be real. You don't shift a veteran left tackle to the right side unless you're absolutely convinced you've got a generational player coming in. And with all the holes Las Vegas still needs to fill, quarterback, defensive tackle, maybe even cornerback, it's hard to see them prioritizing a tackle that early unless someone unexpectedly drops. That's why a preemptive extension for Miller could give the front office some breathing room. If you know that position is locked down, it opens up the draft board. You're no longer reaching for need. You're drafting for value, and that's how good teams stay good. Because when you panic and start chasing holes in April, that's when you miss. That's when you end up with busts. But if you go into the draft with the peace of mind that your blind side is locked up, it lets you focus on finding that quarterback of the future or adding explosive playmakers or building out your pass rush. And let's circle back to that quarterback conversation for a second, because this is where the timing gets especially interesting. If the Raiders do decide to draft a QB in 2025, whether it's a top-tier guy like Drake May or someone they think they can develop, having a stable offensive line is arguably more important than anything else. Rookie quarterbacks don't need all-pro receivers or a fancy playbook to succeed right away. What they need is time. Time to make their reads. Time to adjust to the speed of the game. Time to not get knocked on their back every other snap. Miller gives you that. And if the Raiders can extend him now, possibly reduce that $18 million cap hit in 2025, and structure the deal in a way that pushes more money into future years when the cap is projected to rise, that's a win for everybody. But as always, it comes down to risk. What if Miller regresses? What if injuries start to pile up? He's already played through back issues, knee soreness, and a shoulder problem or two. The last thing you want is to pay top-tier money for a player whose body is starting to break. Down! And make no mistake, tackles age differently. Some, like Andrew Whitworth, play well into their late 30s. Others hit a wall at 30 and never quite get back. Miller is only 28, but he's logged a ton of snaps since 2018. That wear and tear matters, so maybe the more prudent play here isn't a full-blown extension but a restructured deal. Convert some of his 2025 salary into a bonus, push some of that hit into future years, and see how he holds up under a more stable system. It's a bit of a hedge, but one that gives the Raiders flexibility now without locking them into a long-term deal they might regret later. And honestly, that could be a move that signals just as much confidence in Miller's value without taking on too much risk. Then there's the locker room aspect, and this cannot be overstated. The Raiders are in the middle of a culture reboot. Antonio Pierce is trying to build a team that plays tough, plays smart, and plays for each other. That's not just something you say in a press conference. That has to be backed up with action. When you reward a guy like Colton Miller, you send a message to the entire building. You're telling Max Crosby, Nate Hobbs, Andre James, even guys like Dylan Parham and Thayer Munford, this is what we value. Consistency, toughness, professionalism. That stuff matters. And there's another layer here too. Tom Telesco is new, but he's not inexperienced. He's seen what happens when you don't take care of your offensive line. Just look at some of the years he spent with the Chargers. When that line collapsed, everything else went with it. Quarterbacks got hurt, run game stalled, playbooks got shorter. So it stands to reason he'd want to lock in one of the few stable pieces he inherited. It gives him a foundation to build around. And when you're trying to reset a franchise, that foundation is everything. Ultimately, this all comes back to vision. What do the Raiders want to be? If they see themselves as a tough, physical, play-action team with a defense that punches you in the mouth, then keeping a guy like Miller makes sense. He's part of that identity. If they're planning to go younger, lean into speed and finesse, maybe look for more zone blocking. Then maybe they start looking for a different mold. But either way, the decision has to come soon. You can't go into next offseason with a massive cap number hanging over your head and no clear succession plan. That's how you end up scrambling. So Raider Nation, this might not be the flashiest storyline. It's not a blockbuster trade or a splashy free agent. But sometimes the moves that matter the most are the ones that don't make headlines. Locking down Colton Miller, or at least making a decision on his future, could be one of those moves. It could be the quiet domino that sets up everything else. The draft, the quarterback room, the locker room leadership, all of it. And you better believe other teams are watching, because if the Raiders don't take care of Miller, someone else will. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In the bustling heart of the NFL offseason, a seismic shift has the football world buzzing. The Las Vegas Raiders are showing an intense interest in Tyreek Hill, one of the league's most electrifying wide receivers. Known for his blazing speed and unparalleled ability to make plays from anywhere on the field, Hill has become the most sought-after asset in the trade market. With the Raiders' recent struggles to find a true game-changer on offense, the idea of acquiring Cheetah has sent shockwaves through the team's fan base and the NFL community at large. Hill's career speaks for itself. After entering the NFL, in 2016 as a fifth-round pick, Hill has rewritten the record books. The Miami Dolphins star shattered expectations with record-breaking seasons, leading the NFL in receiving yards and touchdowns in 2023. His ability to turn any catch into a touchdown is unparalleled, making him a constant nightmare for defenses. But after a disappointing 2024 season for the Dolphins, in which the team failed to reach the playoffs, Hill's future in Miami has come into question. With his frustrations on full display, the Raiders are watching closely, recognizing an opportunity to elevate their offense to elite status. The Raiders' offense, led by quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, has lacked a true game breaker. While Davante Adams remains a top-tier target, the team has struggled to find a consistent second option. Hill's addition could instantly transform the Raiders' passing attack. His deep threat ability and ability to create yards after the catch would complement Adams' style perfectly, giving Garoppolo the tools to build a more dynamic and unpredictable offense. It's clear the Raiders are desperate to take the next step, and Hill's arrival could be the game changer they'll need. But the path to acquiring Hill isn't without its hurdles. The Dolphins are unlikely to let go of their star without a significant offer, and other suitors are circling, including top-tier teams with far better playoff aspirations. The Raiders will need to be aggressive, potentially offering high draft picks or young talent to pry Hill away from Miami. Moreover, Hill's contract situation could add another layer of complexity, with his superstar status and high salary demands. Any potential deal would have to be carefully balanced to fit within the Raiders' salary cap while also keeping their future flexible. For now, the speculation continues to grow. Will Tyreek Hill leave the Dolphins behind and make his way to the Raiders, potentially reshaping the AFC West? As the draft and free agency approach, the drama surrounding Hill's future only intensifies, with both sides playing their cards. Close to the chest, the NFL offseason just got a whole lot more exciting. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.